welcome to episode number 100 of Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. Thanks to everybody for listening along for all other 99 episodes. It's been tons of fun since we launched this in early February. Hope to have hundreds more, hey, maybe thousands more. Who knows how far we'll take this thing. Interesting, some stuff going on right now. Vikings and vaccines. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Twins, more injury caution in Wednesday night's game. Even in a win, there's not some great news along with that. Chris Hine, only fitting that Chris Hine is my interview subject today. Covers the Timberwolves. He's been on a whole bunch. First 5-time guest. He will join me here in just a little bit. But first, what did I miss? And like I mentioned at the outset, I want to talk about Vikings and vaccines. And the NFL sent out a memo, kind of in concert, actually. But Mike Zimmer addressed the media on Wednesday morning, talking about how Vikings players who aren't vaccinated are going to have a hard time this season. And that includes some guys who publicly said Tuesday they aren't vaccinated. Sheldon Richardson, Adam Thielen, and Harrison Smith. So some prominent players on this team. Kirk Cousins declined basically to answer the question of whether he was vaccinated or not. And I get it, that can be a private subject. What's interesting to me is that the league is putting pressure. Basically, they've made this into a are you a selfish player or are you an unselfish player kind of thing by making it so that players who aren't vaccinated don't have certain rights on the field this year, and during travel that players who are vaccinated have. It's pretty interesting that this is the way they've gone about it. I think it's really smart, actually. I don't get these guys who say they're looking for more information. I don't know what more information you could possibly want at this point, as we've seen the numbers go down and down and down in terms of COVID positives, in terms of deaths, as the vaccine rollout has happened. As you've seen, virtually nobody have any complications from it. But basically, unvaccinated players, 5-figure fines for violating protocols, can't gather, away from the team, can't socialize with non-team members, things like that. Whereas vaccinated players can do a whole bunch of other things, including, meeting together as a group, not wearing masks. They can go out and have other contacts and things like that. So I do wonder if this is going to have the potential to divide locker rooms, especially with the way the NFL has laid down the law a little bit here. There's going to be some pressure now, and I don't think it's bad pressure. I think it's due pressure on players who aren't vaccinated, and I think ultimately most players will make peace with the decision of those who don't get vaccinated. But I'm just curious if there is going to be some tension and some animosity in locker rooms between players who are and aren't vaccinated, and whether that will become a subplot of 2021, especially if there's an outbreak where players have to miss games in 2021, which really, really shouldn't happen given the science that we have at our fingertips.
I'm Chris Hine, Timberwolves beat writer at the Star Tribune and the first 5-time guest in Daily Delivery history. Thank you for listening to this podcast. This work is made possible by our Star Tribune subscribers. For unlimited access to the articles mentioned in this podcast, our coverage of Minnesota sports from pros to preps, and even all of Rand's future blog posts about how the Timberwolves should trade for players they will never get, go to startribune.com/subscribe.
It is only proper and fitting that Chris Hine, the first 5-time Daily Delivery guest, is the guest for the 100th episode of Daily Delivery. That is what we are doing today. We made it 100 episodes. Feels like it went fast. I don't know, Chris, you've been on a good number of these, but to me, it was like, it doesn't feel like I've done 100 of these, but I guess I have, because that's what it says on the tracker.
Well, I mean, maybe it went by fast for some, maybe it went by slowly for others. I'm not, we'll have to poll the audience on that.
Yeah. Maybe people, some people felt like they listened to 300. It did not fly by to some people, but Chris, I didn't anticipate this being as newsy a segment as it has turned out to be, but I feel like right off the jump with the Timberwolves, we need to talk about this ownership kind of dispute is maybe the wrong word, but lawsuit at the very least. I want to get into some Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, Rookie of the Year stuff, LaMelo winning that. And then obviously lottery drawing next week, big for the franchise. So a lot of stuff to get to, in addition to Carole King songs as Timberwolves players. That's going to be a highly anticipated part of this segment.
This was Rand's idea, by the way.
For you and for dozens of others. It is my idea. It was my idea. Surprisingly, it was. But yeah, this ownership stuff, you broke it down well the other day. But even after you broke it down, it still feels complicated. What does this boil down to? And if you're a Wolves fan, just kind of scratching your head, like, what does this all mean? Is there an upshot to it, or is it just kind of in the weeds?
Yeah, I think we're still trying to figure out where this is going ultimately, especially as it pertains to the agreement that's in place between Glenn Taylor, Alex Rodriguez, and Marc Lore for the potential takeover of the Timberwolves. So I think we're just kind of waiting to see what ramifications are going to come of this. Hard to tell. Right now, it appears as if this is a dispute between Glenn Taylor and Meyer Orbach over when Orbach is going to get paid. It seems Orbach wants to get paid now. And Taylor is saying you will get paid in 2 years when Rodriguez and Lore actually take over the franchise. So Orbach is contending that since Taylor has an agreement in place with Lore and Rodriguez, that constitutes enough grounds that he's selling the team. He's selling a controlling part of the team. And therefore Orbach could exercise these quote unquote tag along rights to basically liquidate his shares, which is about 16% of the team, and cash that in as the new ownership comes in. Taylor is saying, not yet. You can't sell yet per their partnership agreement. And in 2 years, when Lore and Rodriguez actually assume a controlling portion of the franchise, Taylor is going to exercise what are called drag along rights. And everybody who is a limited partner or minority owner will get to cash in at the same kind of proportion that Taylor is selling the team. So that is it's basically, when is Meyer Orbach going to get his $300 million for owning 16% of the Timberwolves? He wants it now. Glenn Taylor's saying not now, but in 2 years. So that's kind of where this is at least to the best of my knowledge here. So
two pieces of that. I would always want $300 million sooner rather than later, but I would kind of like it whenever. So I'm not picky.
Right. If somebody told me I was getting $300 million in 2 years, I'd be okay with that too.
Right. Right. But you'd rather have it now. So I get it.
Right.
But the more interesting thing is the lawsuit as part of this has brought out some new information, right? Like, we wouldn't have known some of what we know about the purchase agreement, about controlling interest in the team, things like that, without this lawsuit, correct?
Correct, because everything has to get submitted to the court. So, at first the big revelation was that there was no language in the agreement between Taylor, Lore, and Rodriguez to keep the Timberwolves in Minnesota, as Taylor said there would be. My contention all along is that even if there was anything in there, it wasn't going to mean much anyway, because it's very hard to restrict a new owner and keep a lock over what they could do with the business once they take it over. It's theirs to do what they want with it. But now we've seen a few other things that have been submitted to the court. We've seen kind of the ownership breakdown of just how much Glenn Taylor owns and how much other parties within the Timberwolves own. And you can kind of see that. I broke it down on the website. I think it's Glenn Taylor owns about 69% or so between himself and his various organizations. Right. You've got Meyer Orbach at about 16.3%. And the Flip Saunders estate is listed there as owning 0.27%. And a bunch of other couple kind of small 0 to 3% owners of the franchise. So you kind of see that breakdown. It also kind of lays out exactly how the Lore Rodriguez takeover is going to go. We now see the Taylor's response includes kind of a step-by-step breakdown of how this is going to happen. And that is that Rodriguez and Lore are going to come in for 20% of the ownership this year, another 20% by the end of 2022. And then finally the 20%, which will put them into,
controlling interest,
60% controlling interest of the team by the end of 2023. And then there's an option for another 20% by the end of 2024. So this is kind of how this is all going to go, how they're going to become gradually integrated with the franchise until they take over by the end of 2023, which was kind of what they had said all along was going to happen.
So at this point, we should mention, of course, the insert that we always put into the story. Glenn Taylor, who owns the Timberwolves, still also owns the Star Tribune. The point you made just a little while ago about the language in the contract not really meaning anything, it was still surprising to me that he would say it publicly that, that the language was going to be in there, something to that effect, or indicating it at least, and then it wasn't in there. Do we, is that just is he overstepping something at that point, or is it just a matter of, does that not matter all that much?
It's hard to tell. We haven't, Glenn Taylor hasn't spoken publicly except for a short statement released by the team after Meyerlbach filed his initial suit. So we haven't had the chance to ask Glenn Taylor about that specifically and kind of what happened there or what's going on with that. Everybody was all aflutter on Twitter yesterday because Alex Rodriguez commented on somebody's Instagram comment on his feed saying he was going to keep the Timberwolves in Minnesota. So people were all excited about that. And I believe, and I haven't been to law school, but I feel like I have in reporting this case, but I believe replies to Instagram comments are legally binding.
Those are legally binding.
You think that's true? Yeah.
Yeah. I think those are hold of a court. Make sure you screenshot it because that could be subpoenaed.
Yes, it could be subpoenaed and brought up later in a deposition
in a court of law. I think that's legally binding. I don't know. I've got some lawyer friends. I'll ask them about that. Well, interesting stuff. I like the reporting on that was interesting. Another interesting thing that's not maybe terribly surprising given kind of what we knew going in, but still probably disappointing to some Wolves fans. News that LaMelo Ball has, in fact, won Rookie of the Year. I think Anthony Edwards narrowed the gap considerably over the last 2 months, while LaMelo missed a lot of time and Edwards surged post All-Star break, but nevertheless doesn't win the award. Any thoughts on that? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter ultimately all that much, but it is, kind of a nice honor to have if you can get it.
Right. It's a nice honor to have. Doesn't matter. It doesn't have any, I don't believe any contractual implications for Edwards with Rookie of the Year voting. This was expected. This was kind of the national quote unquote narrative, one of my favorite words throughout the course of the season, that LaMelo, here he is, dynamic rookie leading Charlotte to a winning team, and they made the play-in tournament, which I think his return plus Charlotte making the play-in tournament was ultimately probably what got him enough first place votes in the end, to get it over a surging Edwards, who had a fantastic second half of the season. And at the end of the day, that's what you have to be happy with if you're a Wolves fan, is that second half of the season was special, and it does give you a really good feeling heading into the offseason. So yes, he didn't win the award, and as somebody who follows awards with my favorite actors, actresses, and divas, I get disappointed too when they don't win awards, but ultimately I have to tell myself, you know what, it doesn't really matter all that much.
Oh, what was the comparison you made on Twitter?
I had a couple. I said, it's like when Allison Janney beat Laurie Metcalf for Best Supporting Actress a few years ago.
I will not.
It's like Alice. I love Allison Janney, but it was like
I won't have any Allison Janney.
There is going to be no Allison Janney slander,
especially
here.
not on episode 100.
I'm just saying that, like, for somehow during that Oscar race, everybody had just made up their minds that Allison Janney was going to win the Oscar. And it was like Laurie Metcalf and Lady Bird comes out, and it's like she's getting all these great reviews, and people just didn't really reevaluate who they were voting for. It was like, nope, this is Allison Janney's award all the way through. And that's why I think this is very much so LaMelo Ball is Allison Janney in this analogy, and Anthony Edwards is Laurie Metcalf.
That,
only place on the internet you're going to hear that comparison, by the way.
Probably that was for I, Tonya, right? Which is one of my favorite movies.
I, Tonya. Yeah, that's what you wanted.
One of my favorite movies in the last 10 years. So I will not hear any. I get it. I know what you're saying. I like the comparison. I get what you're saying. I didn't see Lady Bird, by the way. Sorry. I did see
So,
I, Tonya, which probably tells you more about my.
but also a very apt comparison because most people don't watch Timberwolves games. So
That's true.
So how do they know? How do they know Anthony Edwards is better than LaMelo Ball?
That's
How
true.
do you know that Laurie Metcalf isn't better than Allison Janney? So
the Lady Bird versus I, Tonya controversy of 2021 has been brought to the NBA Rookie of the Year race. That's a good comparison.
I also compared it to the 2006 Grammys when U2 and Green Day beat out Mariah
Why do you remember
Carey for
these?
Album
How do
of
you
the
remember
Year and Record of the Year? The Grammy losses like that are scarred deep within me. Because being a big Mariah fan that I am, I just remember just being so let down in front of the TV that the white guys with guitars won again at the Grammys. What a surprise.
Okay. All right. Let's talk lottery quick. The drawing is Tuesday, correct? We know they have about a 28% chance of keeping the pick, which would mean it lands in the top 3. Otherwise, the pick goes to Golden State. Most likely that would be like in the 6, 7, even 8 range. Could still be 4, but that's not as likely at this point based on kind of where they are. And it can't be 5, right? I think that's the way the lottery works, is if you're 6, you can jump into the top 4, but you can't go to 5. So there's a chance
you can't just jump up one spot. That's right.
From there, it's got to be into the top 4, at which point, likely the Wolves keep it unless it's that 10% chance of being the 4 pick, or else it conveys a little bit lower to Golden State. Do you have any sense of, are they bringing out all the stops for good luck? I know they've done that in the past, or, organizational mood, I guess, at this point as they evaluate the offseason, or even just your mood thinking about this.
Well, I mean, my mood is that if they don't get the pick, my summer becomes a little easier.
That's true. 73% chance your summer's a little easier.
My summer's a little harder if they end up with a top 3 pick. But I will say that I think organizationally, I think that they are fine with whatever happens on Tuesday night. Would they like the pick? Obviously, they would like a top 3 pick. Nobody's going to deny that. But you made this bet over a year ago when you made the D'Angelo Russell trade. You had to know that this was a possibility. I think they were hoping that maybe it would be in the low teens if they had to give it up, or something like that. But here they are, 6th heading into the lottery. So you just kind of let the chips fall where they may. Gerson Roses last, I think it was, maybe more like a month and a half ago when I interviewed him, said, hey, we have a plan. If we get the pick, we have a plan. If we don't get the pick. So they have the contingencies in place. They're still scouting. They're still doing their due diligence because you want to make sure you're ready to strike if you end up with a top 3 pick. But they're ready. They're ready for whatever happens.
And I suppose too that makes sense. I would have loved, by the way, if you'd have said, I don't know what we're going to do if we don't get the pick. But it's like, wow, we're not prepared for that. But I guess
we really need this pick.
I mean, I guess ultimately they probably, at the start of the year went into this thinking there's no way we're going to have the pick because they thought they're going to be a lot better than this. So this is, the fact that they even have a shot at the pick is probably at least, surprising to them, and would be a benefit, I guess, at this point. But yeah, we'll see. They have not had terribly good lottery luck in the past, so they did get the number 1 pick a couple times, including with Edwards and Towns. So you see the value of getting, jumping up and getting that number 1 pick.
Yeah.
I think it's time to talk about Timberwolves players as Carole King songs is a great off-season exercise. We did this.
Idea.
We did this a few years ago, and the roster is almost completely changed since then, right?
It was very impromptu as well when we did it. We just kind of did it.
We just riffed on. I gave you at least a few hours to prepare for it this time. So what?
Yes.
What do you have? By the way, you told me some big Carole King news too, right?
There is some big Carole King news. She has not written a lot of songs in recent years as she's aged a little bit, but she has collaborated with Jennifer Hudson on a song for the new Aretha Franklin movie that Jennifer Hudson plays Aretha Franklin and coming out in August. It's coming out on Friday. It's very, very exciting news. And hopefully this time next year, we'll be able to say Academy Award winner Carole King for Best Original Song. That's my hope, at least.
Or maybe she'll lose and you'll make another comparison to a Timberwolves rookie who finished 2nd in the voting.
That's right. Exactly.
Okay, so what
But
songs?
I got a few here.
What players are we talking about? Okay, let's go.
All right. Well, first let's start with Karl Anthony Towns first.
Okay.
And the song I have for him is "Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow?"
That's
because
good. Okay.
I feel like that's the eternal question between the fan base and Towns is he gonna leave? Is he gonna get upset at some point and hit the button on the trade request like we see young superstars do? I feel like that is the perpetual dynamic that we have between Carl Anthony Towns and the Timberwolves fan base. Your thoughts?
I think that's a good one. I think that's apt. He's got 3 years left on his contract at this point. So really, this is kind of, when you're evaluating the NBA, I feel like in sports, it used to be, it was the contract year that was the, okay, what's going to happen year. And the NBA, really, it's shifted. And even in some other sports where, you kind of got that cost control or, you're kind of looking into the future. It's become kind of the year before the walk year that's become the make or break point. So, they need to show something. We've talked about this. They need to show something this year to make him feel good going into the 21-22 season, to think that he's not going to, like you say, hit the button on eject, get me out of here kind of thing. So yeah, I like that one for him.
Okay. We'll go to Ricky Rubio next.
Yes. Thank you.
I put "You've Got a Friend."
Oh,
I feel like no matter, I feel like you and the rest of the Timberwolves fans who have fallen in love with him, that no matter where he goes, no matter what he does, he's always got a friend.
Let's call out your name. I'll always be there, right. Ricky.
That's right. So Ricky Rubio's "You've Got a Friend."
Okay.
We've got up next, Naz Reid.
Okay. Deep cut here?
And it's going to be a deep cut Carole song, too,
okay.
that is an album track from her 1975 album Thoroughbred called "I'd Like to Know You Better."
Okay, I like that.
I feel apt. Which is a song about, connecting with someone and seeing what the potential might be there. And I feel like that's where fans are with Naz Reid. It's like, let's keep seeing this thing grow and let's keep seeing your potential here.
Maybe a bigger role for Naz Reid at some point. Maybe, getting starter minutes at some point. We'll see. I mean, I don't know if, ultimately he's definitely got value. But yeah, I would like to know more. I would like to know more about him.
You would like to know more. Exactly.
I'd like to know more. Okay.
You'd like to know more. Let's go to Jaden McDaniels.
Okay.
Coming up next here. And I'm going with a track from her 1971 album Music, not Tapestry.
Not Tapestry.
The other album she released in 71, the big one. She released the follow-up later that year. And this one is one of my favorite songs that she's ever done. It's called "It's Going to Take Some Time."
Okay, so this is like a Temper Enthusiasm thing on
Temper Enthusiasm, but also like, just know it's going to take some time, that, this could work out in the end, and it's just, just got to give it some time.
Okay.
I kind of wanted to go with "I'd Like to Know You Better" for him too, but I can only use it for one player. So
yeah, I think take some time is probably maybe better for McDaniel. So I agree with that. I think it's you see a lot of potential in him, but what he's going to become is probably more interesting than what's in the here and now. Okay.
Yeah. Carpenters did a very good cover of "It's Going to Take Some Time."
Okay.
Top 12 hit with it back in the day. All right, moving on. We've got Jarrett Culver.
Ooh, okay.
And this is a song that was on Dusty Springfield's classic album, Dusty in Memphis.
Okay.
That Carole King wrote. It's called "Don't Forget About Me."
I don't know. I think this might be. I think they might have already forgotten about him, Chris. They doesn't seem like he's part of the plan.
I mean, he's saying this in this.
He's saying it. Got it. Yeah. Don't forget about me.
Don't forget about me.
It sure like the beginning of the year. They sure had a role for him, and then he got hurt, and then things happened, and he wasn't effective, and then all of a sudden, like, you don't know what's going to happen with. I'd be surprised if there's much of a role for him going forward, though.
Yeah. Would you prefer "It's Too Late" as the Jarrett Culver song?
Maybe. I don't know if there's someone else on the roster who is more apt for that, but he's got some "It's Too Late" vibe to him, even though It's probably not. It's probably too early to say that about someone so young.
That's what I think so too,
Yeah.
and that's what I think so too. So that's why I thought "Don't Forget About Me" was
Like,
a better fit for him.
If he ever somehow became like a 35% shooter from three, he could have himself a career still.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Let's do D'Angelo Russell.
Okay, I like this. Here we go.
Another deep Carole cut from her
Okay.
1972 album Rhymes and Reasons,
Okay.
called "Bitter with the Sweet."
Okay. So
Because I think there are times when D'Angelo, like, it looks really good out there, and he's cooking and he's playing really well offensively, but then there are times where maybe he goes 2 for 11. The defense isn't there. Like, you got to take the bitter with the sweet with D'Angelo Russell, I feel like.
I like it. And you know what, too? When he's not shooting well, he doesn't stop shooting. There's a lot of I feel like most games it's either a lot of bitter or a lot of sweet. There's not a lot of both in the same game. It's a lot of hot or cold. So I like it. I'm good for that. We got a couple more, right?
A couple more. Malik Beasley.
Okay.
I went with "Where You Lead," which is very much a song about kind of following somebody else.
Yep.
And I just feel that way because that's his role in the offense, is like, it's kind of dependent on other people doing the leading offensively, and he is there to take advantage of Cat or D'Lo, people that create the shots. So I chose "Where You Lead" for Malik.
I like that. And I think, one thing we can't overlook too is down the stretch as they got better, we didn't really get to see a look with him in the lineup either. And I'd be very curious to see that at the start of next year, how that fits, how he balances them. Does he take on more of a sixth man role? Does he a starter? I'm not exactly sure, but obviously he's one of their best 3-point shooters on the team. He brings a dimension they don't have. So I'm with you on that one.
This is the last one I came up with. We can maybe spitball a few others if you wanted to, but the last one I did was Anthony Edwards.
Okay.
And I Feel the Earth Move for Anthony Edwards.
Okay. Wow, that's a big song for a big player.
Rim rocking dunks. B, I just feel like this rookie year was very much like the Wolves fan base, like falling head over heels in love with him, which is very much the tone of that song, is about falling in love. So I feel like I Feel the Earth Move is an appropriate one for Anthony Edwards.
I feel like it's good that I gave you some lead time on these, because these were very thoughtful, appropriately, intersection of Carole King songs and Timberwolves players. I mean, almost all of them. The Jarrett Culver, "It's Too Late." Even I guess if it's from his perspective, I guess that's okay. No, it wasn't. "It's Too Late." It's Don't Forget It. Don't forget about.
Don't forget about me.
Don't forget about me.
Yeah. A Dusty Springfield deep cut.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know about that one, but the rest of them, I'm with you, Chris Hine. This is the kind of content that you can expect on Daily Delivery.
For hundreds of more episodes.
Every 100 episodes or so, we'll do more Carole King songs on the show. But I hope everybody enjoyed that. I enjoyed that thoroughly. It's just kind of a different way to talk about Wolves players. Chris Hine, thank you so much. I need to get you your jacket still. I feel bad if I would have remembered.
We will
today,
get this at some point.
It will. Yeah, you don't need it like right now because it's like boiling outside. But I want you to have it, so it'll be yours soon. But thanks again for joining me again today and all the previous times. And let's do this again at episode 200.
I agree. Let's do it again. Thank you.
Let's end with the cooler. Major League Baseball's foremost team in caution victories this season, the Twins. 4 more things to add to that list on Wednesday that we learned about. 1, Byron Buxton doesn't appear like he's fully healthy yet. At least that's the Twins' opinion. Buxton wants to play, it sounds like. He's trying to convince them that he's ready to go, but he did not play in any of those games against Seattle while trying to work his way back onto the field. Twins saying, Rocco Baldelli saying he might need another stint in St. Paul because he's still not able to run full speed. And that would be a major disappointment because when he came onto this trip with them, it sure looked like that was a sign that maybe he was ready. Now, Wednesday, Bailey Ober pitches well, but he's lifted after, 63 pitches because that's the pitch count he's going to be on for the rest of the year. The Twins limiting their young pitchers to not that many innings because they're worried, not that many pitches because they're worried that none of them had minor league seasons a year ago. So that's interesting to me as well. Josh Donaldson and Drolton Simmons both leave Wednesday's game, which won by the Twins, by the way, 7-2, with minor injuries. It sounds like Rocco Baldelli describes the calf strain of Josh Donaldson as nothing. I'm gonna find the exact quote for you here. There's not really a high level of concern right now, but it is a calf injury that's caused him to miss time in the past. There's calf tightness, right calf, and Drelton Simmons, left ankle problem, something he's had some problems with this year. It's something that definitely relieves itself normally in a day or two, Rocco Baldelli said. We'll be watching those, though, because day or two and not troubling tend to lead to bigger things with the Twins, even as they try to exercise this caution this season. That'll do it for today. Thank you so much for joining episode 100 of Daily Delivery. Hope you've listened to as many of them as possible. Tell a friend, write a review, download the podcast all the time as you will. Read Star Tribune, StarTribune.com, and we'll catch you again for episode 101 on Friday.